Welcome to our first workshop in our series From Conflict to Clarity. I am so grateful you're here. This is our first workshop in our year-long series of 2026. We're going to be focusing on conflict resolution. And in this first workshop, lunch and learn, if you are stateside, if you are Eastern time, more of a pre-dinner moment if you are in Europe, wherever you are in the world. Today's focus is really going to be about moving from reactive communication to grounded leadership, to communicating from a space of centeredness, no matter what's going on outside of ourselves. So we know by looking at the state of the world how important this is. We need energized, refreshed individuals, leaders, managers, team members, everyone to feel as well as possible and to be able to communicate as effectively as possible. And my goal today is to provide you with really an introduction to ethical principles that can change your life. I am going to take the first couple of minutes to introduce myself, and then I will be going through about 30 minutes of high value content aimed at equipping you with new perspectives, how you can take a step back from your current situation, whatever that might be, whether you're encountering some tension with a coworker, whether there's someone who is just really difficult, seemingly to get along with on a team. Maybe it's a manager or a boss you're struggling to share a boundary with or move forward on a project with. Whatever it might be, this is going to be interdisciplinary, useful life skills training that you can begin to percolate and sit with and integrate. This is an introductory workshop. It is not a replacement for a more in-depth professional development training that I will also be describing a little bit later on for those of you who make it to the end of our workshop. We're going to have also a Q&A part of our workshop. There will be a continued Q&A if you're joining us on the replay. Hi, Team Replay. You are included. You have a place here. Myself, I know that I do my very best and I attend many of my own professional development trainings in person. And sometimes I also listen to workshops and courses on my own time. So you're all really welcome here in the Be the Change Letters of Change community. I do want to introduce myself before I start with the guidelines of our workshop and jump right in. My name is Julie Foubert. I am a certified ethical leadership consultant. I am American and at the same time, really an international citizen. I am married to Alexandre, a Frenchman, and we live with our two beautiful children in the south of France near Nice. And I have the honor, truly, and privilege of working all over the world with citizens, leaders, professionals, and parents, thanks to the power of technology. So really, this workshop series is an answer to the Be the Change community. Be the Change is the company, the training company I founded in 2021 as an answer to really this desire for parents and professionals to bridge those different spheres, whether they're at home or at work, and to provide them with life skills trainings, whether that's in workshops, in one-on-one consultations, coachings, conferences, and management trainings that I have the opportunity to provide with my colleagues in the International Ethical Leadership Network. It is a joy to be with you today, and we're going to jump right in to what it means to move from being reactive to being grounded. We're going to really take it step by step. So if we look at a reaction, right, something that has come up a lot in modern culture the last few years is the identification of triggers, right? Triggers being kind of those red buttons that literally we sometimes will even say in English, she just pushes my buttons. Or I will hear parents say, it feels like my child knows how to push my buttons. The good news is that we are not machines, so we don't have buttons, but we do have indeed parts of ourselves that it's almost like it's become a bit bruised. And we need to journey back to understand where those triggers came from. Now, this is not going to be as in-depth, again, as when we take time in a day-long session, 2-day session to go really exploring why we've developed the way we have as human beings, I do want to give you just an overview so you can walk away understanding a little more about yourself and why maybe a particular colleague, coworker, boss, partner, friend might have been someone who tended to trigger you. So, first and foremost, it's important to know that we all have an absolutely infinite potential for creating, for implementing our ideas, thoughts, dreams, aspirations. We have a very full life potential within us, each and every one of us. Now, does that mean it's always visible? Not necessarily. One thing we're going to cover today is how we can see people's potential even when it doesn't seem easy, right? And I'm thinking about certain leaders around the world that really would benefit from this workshop because sometimes their behaviors do not manifest and show that they are connected to their potential. But it's there. The good news is that it's there. So each human being really is born with this infinite potential for implementing, for realizing, having many realizations and realizing their dreams, really making them happen, making them come to life. When a child is growing up, and the children that we all were at one point now as adults, when a child is growing up, they're going to encounter a whole different amount of people, right? All different kinds of people, all different kinds of situations, whether that's first their family, mother, father, aunt, uncle, grandparents, then moving as they grow and get to be school aged or even at a nursery, daycare level, they're going to meet the educational professionals who are taking care of them. They're going to then meet wider members of the family circle. They're going to meet members of the community. They're going to meet their teachers at school. Then they'll go on to have different friends. And all of this is to say that through those experiences, there are both positive experiences and negative experiences. There are positive ones that really form our positive memories, and those are where usually your strengths are, right? Where you feel like, oh, I'm really good at listening to people. And if you ask people the question behind their story of what they really like about themselves and what their strengths are, often they will tell you a story about themselves when they were younger. If you listen closely, they will let you in and they'll tell you where that came from, where they attribute that behavior, not always an external person, but quite often it will be in connection with what they lived earlier on in their lives. And this is important. We're going to get back to the triggers in just a second. This is important because, of course, there aren't just positive experiences in our lives, right? There are also negative ones. And it's super important to know that we have the power, we have the potential to move, to shift those negative experiences that have kind of gotten stuck in us into our full life potential. It's potential that kind of got frustrated, that got kind of bruised, that got hurt, whether it was through words, whether it was through even sometimes physical situations. And without going too deep today, it's important to evoke in a professional environment because these triggers, whether we like it or not, they are walking around with us in the hallway, at the in the coffee room, in the break room, in the lunchroom, right? These are human components. These are human elements. So if we don't do vulnerability, as Brene Brown, a very famous researcher, says, vulnerability will do us. Okay. So we want to investigate. It's in our interest to know ourselves better and what might trigger us. And as this human being, if I go back to this story of a human being going through life, never experiences what it means to be truly emotionally safe, thanks to the power of an ethical principle I'm about to reveal to you, it is much more difficult to have strong interpersonal communication and to resolve conflicts and to not take things personally and to speak up when something needs to be said. So these are skills, these are life skills we can all learn that we didn't necessarily learn at school and in our upbringing and in kind of our modern formatting, so to speak. So one of the first places to begin is in this space, in this principle, this first ethical guideline that I want to give you today in this workshop that is from the ethical leadership pedagogy. Ethical leadership being a global approach to life, a very humanist approach, and fundamentally logical approach to thinking, feeling, being, evolving, and contributing to a better world. So it's really an approach based on our individual and our collective potential as a society. And this first ethical principle that is one of the core tenets and concepts that we teach in ethical leadership development training sessions is non-judgment. Non-judgment means not judging. It means not condemning ourselves, first and foremost, and another person, including a situation, including content we might listen to, including interaction. So non-judgment means we're not going to reject someone. We're not going to attribute a judging value of that person. So for example, instead of saying a coworker is impossible to work with or a really difficult person, my invitation, my challenge to you is to say that in certain situations, your coworker had very challenging behavior. This might seem like a very small shift when I say it to you so simply here in this workshop. However, making the shift from she is difficult to she has certain behaviors I find really difficult makes new space. It opens up the perspective. It allows us to take a huge step back and see things more clearly. This series is called From Conflict to Clarity for a reason. When we are kind of in the throes of conflict, it's almost like we've gotten sucked in to a vortex of really fast emotions that aren't going to help us achieve our goals, feel well, feel balanced. So the first thing we need to do is take a big step back, take some deep breaths, and really make a choice. Have integrity to make a choice. We have a choice in every moment. And practicing non-judgment, it's about leading and being exemplary first and foremost for ourselves. We can't control other people. I am sure that you already know that. And I am not teaching you something new when I say that, but I remind you of it because when we practice non-judgment, and it is a skill to practice, it's a lifelong practice. I have had the honor of discovering and training and becoming a consultant years later in ethical leadership over the last 15 years now. And I'm still practicing. It's a daily practice, and that's okay. That's okay. It's a choice to practice non-judgment. And instead of reacting and really letting our vices lead us astray, when we practice that space of breathing, that practice that space of non-judgment, and make a conscious choice to say, I'm not going to judge. I am going to replace judgment, rejecting, criticizing, putting down, calling names. I'm going to replace that with observation. I'm going to replace that with grounded observation. What does that look like in the workplace? It looks like instead of saying my coworker is difficult, by saying, I have found that when this coworker had a tendency to run really long overtime on meetings, I felt like that's really frustrating. And that behavior, I find it difficult to deal with. It's a completely different paradigm, and it opens up the possibility for you to actually affect change. So, number one guideline of today's workshop is the invitation, my challenge to you to stop judging and to move from judgment to non-judgment and replace judgment with an observation that is very much based in real life, that is very much based in quality, that doesn't mean not saying anything. On the contrary, when you don't judge, you can actually say a lot more because you're checking yourself first, you're checking yourself at the door, and you're deciding not to bring that judgment of the ego into the meeting. I was working with a company a couple months ago, and we were doing a follow-up session after an initial day and a half long training with about 25 managers from an international company, managers from all walks of life, all different cultures. And one of the gentlemen who was sharing in a follow-up session said, one of the things that's really changed my life is I identified that I was judging, and I didn't bring my judgment. I didn't bring that judgment into the meeting. And I love how he said that. And if this reaches you, you know how Jason, one day, if you hear this workshop, bravo, because when someone makes that conscious choice to check the judgment at the door, to check the judgment before being in the office and before being in the home, you can truly change your life. You can truly change the quality of the interaction you're going to have. So I know that we've covered a lot on non-judgment. I'm going to move on to the second guideline I want to share with you today of how to overcome those triggers and give you the guideline that is also so important, which is to see your potential. See who you are. You have intrinsic value as a human being. You matter. You count. You are a human being. You count. You matter in this world. You have value. I can't say it enough. You matter. And when you start from a place of, okay, I have potential, I matter, my needs matter, I don't need to squash having needs in order to move through the world, everything can change. When I learned this, when I encountered the ethical leadership approach back in 2011 in Paris, when I had the honor of being recruited as a teacher at Living School, an amazing international school based in Paris. I was changed forever. No one had ever told me so explicitly and clearly, Julie, you have potential. You have a life force within you to affect change. You are naturally and inherently a good person, and you deserve goodness. You deserve to live a meaningful, balanced life. And when we conceptualize that and we know that we have this potential to be and to grow and to live and to create projects and to connect with others and to love and to really contribute to the world, this changes our perspective fundamentally. It shifts where we're placing our focus. So if I go back to the human being I was describing to you earlier, and I tell you a little bit more about what it means to affect change on those triggers, I want you to now go with those guidelines I've given you of non-judgment and really seeing people in their potential, starting with yourself, and knowing that, okay, there's this potential, there's this beautiful potential that's there. And as we were growing up as children and then as young adults and the adults we are today, that potential got impacted by different things, right? It got impacted sometimes by positive and both negative behaviors, incidents, people, phrases. We all have phrases that can come to mind that maybe a teacher said to us, a parent, something that stung, something that hurt. So that potential had some impacts on it, and it became kind of frustrated, kind of constricted. And that is what is happening underneath some of those uncomfortable conversations sometimes, where it almost can kind of feel like someone is pressing on a bruise that we have physically, but it's an emotional bruise. And a lot of the work that we do in ethical leadership is to become aware and gain insight on where our frustrated potential zones are. Because once we become more aware of them, the good news is that we can transform that energy to being really part of who we are, and we gain that energy back for ourselves. We gain more potential for ourselves, our families, our projects, both at home and at work. And so the work of becoming more aware is so important. And it is something I know that sometimes can almost sound like I don't have time for it, but actually time is already full of these triggers and this frustrated life potential. So if you want less frustration, if you want more clarity, if you want to feel at ease in your life. You want to breathe easier. And I know I do as a mother, as a citizen, as a wife, as a consultant, as someone who's speaking with people all over the world on a weekly basis. I want us all breathing easier. I want us all feeling like we can move through the world easier. And this is how you can begin to affect that change. Really start to move step by step into space of non-judgment, seeing yourself in your potential and identifying yourself with your full life potential, and step by step becoming aware of what those triggers are for you. So when you walk away from this workshop, something you can concretely begin to do today is to visualize and conceptualize that when you're speaking to another person, you are speaking potential to potential. You're speaking from human being to human being, whether you're speaking to a boss, a manager, a colleague, whoever it might be, you are speaking equal to equal on a fundamental human level. And I know it's challenging. I know it's not always easy. However, these are skills that you can learn. You can strengthen your life force, your potential to be clear, state your needs when you decide to have that global vision of a human being and starting with yourself. So instead of focalizing and crystallizing yourself on the problem, I don't think crystallizing is an English word. Instead of hyper focusing and obsessively almost hyper focusing on what a problem might be, I want to invite you to take a huge step back, and say, okay, if I'm not centered in my potential, I'm going to really, do this journey of becoming more aware of what triggers me so that in the moment, I can become aware that I wasn't centered. That's the first step. Then, as I embark on this journey of evolving, as I become more aware of who I am, of knowing myself, of knowing what my strengths are, of really being on a journey of self-actualization, it becomes a lot easier to then go to your manager, go to your colleague, go to your boss and say, I'd really like us to have a clarifying conversation. There are some things that, I really don't want to talk about it in a reactive manner. I've taken some time and I'd like us to uh, find a solution together. And I already know sometimes some of the questions I will get to this is, yes, but what about the other person when they're just so difficult and they don't want to talk to me? Or what about my boss who I've tried to talk to, 10 times about my PTO or family needs and they're just not listening. And I get it and I see you. I'm not saying this is a magic wand that you wave and all of a sudden you wake up and you say, okay, I have this beautiful potential and so does the other person and it fixes everything. Absolutely not. This is a very realistic approach. However, what you can do is you can learn these skills, you can practice them, and we can look together at your situation so that we can go step by step through what you have tried before and how you can reposition yourself to see that maybe there was a little bit more responsibility on your end than you might have thought. Maybe you were judging more than you initially were conscious or aware of. And 99.9% of the time, it's usually the case. I know it's been my case. And when I've done the work, when I've taken a step back, when I've gotten that perspective, I've been able to just absolutely make the shifts that needed to happen. And the interaction didn't happen at all the same way. So that's the real beauty and the power of working on our life skills, our way of being, because this is not just a checklist that we're going to go through and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, got it done. This is about inhabiting a new space, a new paradigm of how we interact with people, how we see ourselves, how we consider ourselves, and from there moving towards communicating potential to potential with a coworker, a colleague, a spouse, a friend, whoever it might be, and keeping that human quality at the center of our interaction. So today we've covered a lot of ground. I'm going to be sending you all with the replay, the actual deck that I prepared for this workshop. And because I had read that Substack was doing lives now on desktop, but when I went on my Substack earlier on my desktop computer, it was not working. I didn't find where to get on the live. So my apologies for that, because the flow of the workshop, I think, is nice to have the visual format. So you can absolutely listen to this like a podcast. I will also put the audio file here. I'm going to be sending you that deck that just has a little bit of a synopsis of what we just covered. You're also going to be getting a 2-page PDF with a synopsis of also what I've just taught in class. And you will have the opportunity to apply sort of really exclusively here in the Letters of Change community. There are limited spots for an online course that I will have the joy of teaching with my friend and colleague Gwenola Blique. She is the founder of Infuse Éthique, which is an international training company. She's also bilingual in French and English. This training will be in English. She's an ethical leadership consultant and a dear friend of mine. We will be teaching together a training session, professional development course for dedicated professionals, managers, leaders across March, April, and May. So across 5 sessions, half-day sessions online. I will link all the information in the PDF, the brochure, and the registration form. So if you are really feeling like this resonates with you, like you want more energy, you want less stress, you want to really dive into the concepts, and you want to be able to apply them even further in your personal and professional spheres, this professional development training seminar is for you. It's called From Vision to Innovation. And from vision to innovation means from seeing what your goal is, just starting already with your own perspective, then to actually making it happen. There are a few steps in there, as we know, right? So this is really geared for managers who are ready to commit to working on themselves, who see the value in becoming more emotionally intelligent, emotionally connected. And we are going to have the absolute joy of teaching you, facilitating this training session, answering your questions based on real life scenarios. There have been thousands of managers that have gone through this course that say there is a before and an after in their lives as managers and as people, because the skills are really skills you can apply for all of your teams, right? Your team that's at home and your team at work. I thank you for your time. I thank you for participating. There will probably be a lot of people on the replay that will be going out shortly, and Substack does that automatically. And I can't wait to hear your questions. Please let me know if you have any, and can't wait to connect really, really soon. If you have any questions, please send me an email at julie@b-the-change.fr. I will link that as well in the notes of this replay. And I wish you truly to take care of yourself proactively. See yourself that you are a good person, that you are worthy of time for yourself. You are worthy of being clear, just as each and every human being deep down truly is. And when it's the most challenging, when it's the most difficult, that is where we have the responsibility as managers, leaders, citizens to be empathetic, to exercise our empathy, to really put it into action as well, to feel it and be it, and to carry it out into the world that really, really needs our positive changes and contributions right now. And that is why my company is called Be the Change. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Start with yourself, and that's already quite a tall order already. It's already gives us a lot to work with. I know here I am years later, I'm still working on it. It'll be a work in progress all my life. And I'm really excited about that. I'm excited that we can all progress. We can all evolve if we have the desire to. If we have the desire to change, that's really the only prerequisite as well for this training. And so I really, really look forward to meeting those of you who will dare to take that step, who will take that brave step of moving forward into your true fullest life potential and applying it in your life. I wish you all the best. Thank you again for listening and participating. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me, and I'll send all the information along with the replay. Have a great evening, day, morning, week, weekend, and I will talk to you hopefully very, very soon. Bye-bye.